For this problem, we will be solving 25x squared plus 16 equals 0 using the square root property. We will then do it for the second problem, though I suggest when we finish the first, you pause the video and try the second one on your own. To begin the first problem, in order to use the square root property, we need to get the variable or whatever is being squared or raised to the second power completely alone. So the first step to get that alone is to subtract this 16 from each side, which leaves us with 25x squared equals negative 16. Then from here, we will divide each side by the number in front of our x squared to get the x squared alone. So we'll divide each side by 25 to get x squared equals negative 16 over 25. Now that we have one term being squared, it doesn't matter what's being squared as long as we have that term alone, we can now apply the square root property, which says that we can take the square root of each side of the equation. And this will not change the problem. And we do this because the square root of x squared will leave us with just x, and that will be equal to the square root of negative 16 over 25, but when you take the square root of each side, you introduce a positive and a negative answer. So we get x equals plus or minus the square root of negative 16 over 25. From here, we know that if you have a negative inside of your square root, that just means that you have an imaginary number, so we'll take it out as an I. So we get plus or minus I times the square root of 16 over 25. And finally, we'll break up this square root in order to simplify it. We get plus or minus I times the square root of 16 over the square root of 25. Always remember, if you have a square root with a fraction inside of it, you can put the square root over the top and the bottom, which gives us x equals plus or minus the square root of 16 is 4 over the square root of 5 over the square root of 25 is 5, and that's all times I. Always remember the I has to come last for complex numbers. So x equals positive 4/5 I and negative 4/5 I are the two solutions to 25x squared plus 16 equals 0. Now, as I suggested, you should pause the video and try this problem on your own. Okay, so to begin this problem, the term being squared is already alone, so we do not have to do any moving terms to the other side. We can simply take the square root of each side immediately in the first step. The square root of the quantity of x minus 3 squared is just going to cancel out, leaving us the x minus 3 by itself, and that will be equal to plus or minus the square root of 5. Now from here, to get the x alone, we will add the 3 to each side of the equation, giving us x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 5. And just to write this out, this means that x equals 3 plus the square root of 5, or x equals 3 minus the square root of 5. And those are the two solutions to the original problem.